and I spent 28 years in the nuclear Navy, and I spent 8 years of my life underwater. Across that journey, I was selected to be the president's military aide, the person who carried the nuclear codes for President George W. Bush. So I didn't get that job because I was the best tactically or technically. I got that job because I taught or I led by leading with love. And again, here's this guy carrying the nuclear codes, potentially responsible for Armageddon. I'm talking about leading with love.
It's encouraging to know that they choose someone that's leading with love to carry the nuclear codes.
Welcome to the Peakality podcast, your new favorite spot for unlocking the best version of yourself. Ready to level up your life? We've got you. We're all about blending technology with human wisdom and the drive to be better, personally and professionally. Each week we dig into the real stuff, strategies, tools, and mindsets that cut through the noise and help you thrive. No fluff, just practical insights from experts, thought leaders, and people who've been there, done that. And we're here to break it all down into easy steps. Whether you're kicking off a fresh start or a physician seeking to inspire your patients, we've got stories, tips, and tricks to inspire growth in each area of life. Your peak potential is calling, starting right now. Hit subscribe, join our crew, and let's move forward today.
Today's guest is someone whose leadership journey has literally spanned the depths of the ocean and the highest halls of power. Dr. Rob Ronska, also known as Navy Bob, is a former captain of nuclear submarine, trusted carrier of nuclear football for President George W. Bush, and author of Beyond the Sea, as well as his newest book coming out, High Reliability Healthcare. Each outline how he has spent his life leading under extreme pressure and how to lead in those moments. From commanding crews underwater to transforming hospitals on land, his mission has remained constant: to lead with love and build high-performing teams that thrive in any environment. Welcome, Bob. Let's just start from the beginning. How did you get into the Navy? Why did you join the Navy? And how did you get your name, Navy Bob?
Well, real quick, I wanted to fly. Top Gun was out at the time, the first one, and I didn't have 20/20 vision. And so my dreams of going to be a pilot were shattered. And so I joined the Merchant Marine, and it was a Merchant Marine, SUNY Maritime College. It's a maritime college up in the Bronx. And there, again, I'm not making life decisions on movies, but Hunt for Red October came out.
Yeah, I remember going to the movies to see that.
And so I said, I want to do that. And I joined the nuclear Navy through that program. And I spent 28 years in the nuclear Navy, and I spent 8 years of my life underwater. But across that journey, I was selected to be the president's military aide, the person who carried the nuclear codes for President George W. Bush. Amazing. And because George W. Bush, president, was so caring, and that's in the book that talks about this, my book we're going to get to, is that he had nicknames for everybody that he liked or loved.
Oh.
And so one day he called me Navy Bob. And it stuck, so that's how I got the nickname Navy Bob.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So you went to a maritime school and joined the Navy nuclear program, and that's how you literally started your career from the very beginning. And how did you choose the nuclear program?
So they came to me, and the reason why they came to me is because the nuclear Navy is so competitive. There's only essentially one third of the candidates at the academy that qualify technically to go into the nuclear Navy. Yeah. So they had to open up their aperture to really get other candidates, such as in the ROTC program and this other program called Nuclear Propulsion Officer Candidate. I was an engineer at SUNY Maritime, and so they approached me and said, are you interested of potentially joining the nuclear Navy? And the movie was out. I didn't think I wanted to, but after I went on a submarine to tour it while I was in college and saw the camaraderie, saw the teamwork, that was what sold me to go to the nuclear Navy.
Very cool. And because it's when you find that somebody carried the codes, the nuclear codes for a president, it just where does someone start in that process and that journey to then all the way up to working with the president carrying nuclear codes? What is a day like, and how did you even get asked to carry the football? I mean, how does that even happen?
So not to go into too much detail, in my book I explain how I got that job. But when I went into the nuclear Navy, I was with the cream of the crop of the country, technically. And so I felt like I was a fish out of water. And I didn't think I was good enough to be part of that. So I didn't get that job because I was the best tactically or technically. I got that job because I taught or I led by leading with love. Amazing. And again, here's this guy leading with love, carrying the nuclear codes, potentially responsible for Armageddon, or being a captain of a $2 billion nuclear submarine. I'm talking about leading with love. And there's no other way to explain it. And that leading with love is so important because it not only unleashed my full potential, but it unleashed the full potential of those people that I served and the organization that I was in. Because when people feel cared for, heard, they unleash their full potential. They will go above and beyond to do whatever you ask them to do. And because I did that and led, and I was partly responsible for that, we became the best submarines in the squadron at the time. So when they looked around, they said, well, who's our top officer? It wasn't because I was the best technically or tactically. It was because I was on and coordinating the best teams.
Amazing.
And so when they selected me to go interview along with 6 other people who were the top notch of other like Navy SEALs and fighter pilots, they picked me. And I owe it to my leadership style, not because of who I am or my tactical. And this is what I want to share with the world.
Oh, wow. And it's encouraging to know that they choose someone that's leading with love to carry the nuclear codes. I mean, it's like, all humor aside, I mean, because that is like, you just have to wonder about the person and the people that they assign. And it's amazing that they, in all sincerity, that they're choosing somebody that is leading with the right, intentions and the right leadership skills. And that is a huge aspect and feature that you want to have, and to have the confidence that somebody with that position has.
So Courtney, I'm so glad you asked this question. And so this goes back to the core of leading with love. Yeah. Leading with love is not soft, it is not romantic, and it has accountability. And so why I was so honored and privileged to do this is because I wasn't hungry to cause world Armageddon. I was passionate about saving lives, and let me explain. If you look at the number of people that had died during World War I globally and World War II respectively, we're talking like 40 million people and 70 million people. And since World War II, we've had wars, but nothing compared to the number of people we lost since World War II. And why is that? A lot of studies attribute this to nuclear weapons, right? Yes. We had the nuclear bomb. And that deterrence actually could destroy many lives. In fact, over the years, it saved countless lives. And so my presence to be able to deter this gave me the confidence and the love to know that I was there saving lives. And so that position, although it was incredible responsibility, it actually gave me the fuel because I knew what I was doing. I was actually saving lives.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's encouraging just as a citizen to know who and how someone like that, and inspiring to see how someone was able to grow up in the system and to know that who that person is on a really foundational level and leading with love. So I want to understand a little bit more with this leading with love. Like, where did this originate? Where did this come from, and how did it start? And how did you become a good leader that led you into that position?
So if I could give you the aha moment.
Please.
I knew there was something that made me write this book.
Yeah.
I didn't want to write a book. I had enough writing books and papers in my college days, but something caused me, I needed to document this. And as I wrote this book, I reflected back, and I'll share a story. It's the opening chapter in this book called Don't Mess with Texas. We were, as the captain of this nuclear submarine, we were behind enemy lines. I can't say what on enemy lines we were, but we were stone throws away from the most capable adversary submarine in the world. And we were surrounded by their fleet in their backyard. They had no idea we were there. The only thing that was exposed was a periscope watching what they were doing for our national security. This was a mission vital to national security that was approved by the President of the United States. So you can imagine tensions were high, because what was at stake was if they knew we were there, they would have done everything possible to get us to surface and take pictures of us, to include using force and potentially loss of life. But if we were wrong, if you take the cost of this $2 billion nuclear submarine, the number of times we do this, the cost of the maintenance, the cost of the crew, that one event was going to cost the taxpayers about $100 million. Oh my gosh. So there was so much at stake. And so tensions were high. And then we get 2 independent indications that they found us. And our protocol in the submarine force is to immediately evacuate, get out of there, because every second counts. And after the second indication, as I'm about to get out of there, and once we left, there was no turning back, because we couldn't come back and monitor this event. As I'm opening my mouth, my second in command, Gary Montalvo, one person, one moment changed the course. And if he was wrong, they would have came back and really critiqued the situation, and his judgment would have been in question if they actually had us. His reputation, his promotion would have been probably held up. And he spoke up. He said, wait a minute, there's something not right, when I was about to make the final command to get out of there. And once that was said, but he spoke up, and he stopped me. And then someone else spoke up. And this one person changed everything. And it wasn't us. He was right. But it was a 99% sure, if you ask anybody, that they had us. So when I asked Gary afterwards, I said, why did you do this? Why did you sacrifice your reputation, your career, not to mention your family, because then you wouldn't be able to promote? I go, why did you do this? And you know what his answer was? Because you would have done it for me.
Oh my gosh, wow.
That was the aha moment for me. That was not because he did it for me, because it was the environment we set. Yes. Because he knew that my best interest was for him. Yes. And that is exactly explained with Dr. Grain of this leadership relationship theory. And that is when you build that environment, that the crew is no longer fearful of making a mistake to get in trouble. They were fearful of making a mistake because they didn't want to let anyone down. Wow. And when you get that, it's like going 88 miles an hour. And the evidence is clearly, it's all your stress goes down by 74%, because you build trust. Productivity goes up by 50%, retention goes up by 30%, turnover goes down by 30%. All the outcomes just go up. And that's exactly what took us from the worst submarine. In 3 years, we became the best, and we had the lowest turnover in the Pacific Fleet for 2 consecutive years in a row, and we scored the best grades as possible on any inspection. And that is what I want to share with the world, because this is not what we teach in our academic or leadership conference. It is not teaching people how to lead, it's teaching what leadership is.
Yes, oh my gosh. Well, and I think you have touched perfectly on what I was trying set up for, and the humorous side of we want that person to be friendly, to what you said. It's not about being, soft. And that's exactly what a perfect example of having that trust to speak up to the leader in this high stakes position, sacrificing everything. I mean, that's just nothing but trust, and trust for one another that you can. And that is just a beautiful example, and what an aha moment for sure.
And one thing I'm so excited is not only can we build this environment,
yes,
but you can measure it.
Oh, yes.
In this it will tell you, how do you rate with the national average of 50 years of academic research? What is that environment?
Yes.
And that directly correlates to your outcomes. So if you can help leaders first measure that, then give them the tools to be able to improve that relationship and that trust, then you go measure it again.
So how do you measure it? What's the measuring tool?
So the measuring tool is from Dr. Grain, who's done this for 50 years. It's called LMX7. The reason why it's 7 is because there's 7 scales, 7 questions. Okay. And in there's, like I said, 50 years of academic research, countless citations, meta-analysis that show this. that any industry, if you can improve the relationships, especially which is so needed today in this generation, all your outcomes will go up. So now we have a 5-step process to build these relationships and measure it to really model of what I experience in the nuclear Navy and so many other industries. And so that LMX7, I'll give you one, is I believe defining love is having the back of your subordinate at the cost of your own. Like when Gary said, why would you do this? Because you would do it for me. He did it because he knew I would do it for him. And one of the scales in this, one of the questions in the 7th scale that measures this in an academic world is, would you bail out your subordinate at the cost of your own? Basically, would you sacrifice yourself as a leader for others? And I'm not saying if someone, murders somebody or something. This is something simple where they made a mistake and you have their back because you look yourself in the mirror first to show that I give all the resources, is the culture set, and is they have all the capability and learnings that they need to be able to do their job correctly. Once you do that and those expectations are clear and the resources are there, then it's expected for you to hold that person accountable when they don't do that. And if you don't, that is not leading with love as well, and that's where the accountability comes in.
Yeah, that's really powerful for you to, I think for us to really recognize and to really understand that the maturity of what leadership is and the accountability that goes along with it. Because I think that is something that's very much lost in today with the relationships, having and then being accountable, and then not just walking away, but standing up for, and not just yourself, but for others. What does that look like? You have a metric in which you measure, and then you have a process. So what does that process entail to try and even get there to the next metric?
So we offer various, Dr. Grain helped me create, or he was co-creator of this academic curriculum, of this for teaching any academics. So what it is, the first day you actually do the survey, you measure a baseline of that leader with their subordinates or their team members, but then you go through this really rigorous, intense schooling or seminars to be able to give those leaders the tools to improve and develop that environment. So for example, we actually give tools to be able to improve empathy, to be able to improve trust, to be able to have critical conversations, to improve recognition. All these things are building that environment. And so instead of just talking about it, we're actually role-playing, giving evidence-based articles, and giving videos on how you do this, and then we role-play it so that they can go out and do it.
That's great.
And then at the end, we do it again. We do this measurement after we do this 5-step process to build relationships and so on, and it will show that all your outcomes will go up as a leader. And this is the aha moment for me. We don't do this. I've never experienced this in any, I've been to countless leadership courses as well. And to go back what you were saying about accountability, and people think, and I've talked to many, countless leaders, that, especially in this era, that they think that if you lead with love, your mission's going to fail.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's not.
No.
This is based on evidence. I'm giving this over and over again of different examples, and it's backed by evidence. It's not only me in the submarine force, and I'll give you another example, is that Mr. Rogers, and again, this is another, Mr. Rogers, who went to Rollins College, when he died, he had a note in his wallet that said, "Life is for service." And he got that off of one of the buildings at Rollins College. And what Mr. Rogers has said, a famous quote, is love and success. It has to be in that order. It's that hard and it's that difficult, which means leaders have to put love first, success will follow. We have so many leaders that are just concentrating on productivity, mission. People are miserable.
Yes.
And sure, they're getting somewhat results, but the amount of results you're getting is so minuscule. If you just did the opposite, the results, the mission, the sustainability will forever. But we got these leaders that they're worried about themselves and their next promotion and their next job. And so they're just stepping over people for these near-term results. But the company that is hiring and promoting these people, they're also, and again, I don't blame them because they've never been taught this. And this is the aha moment for me, that you can have a great life.
Yeah.
You can lead a great company that far exceeds any productivity that you would ever imagine if you just did it this way. And like I said, we're not teaching this. And this is what I would love to do with the world.
I love it. And so in your book, Beyond the Sea, you're really breaking this down, your process, and how it can be applicable to others in other fields, not just in the military,
Yes.
but in other industries. Can you explain like how you're translating that?
So in this book, it's basically a memoir of where I started this and learned it. And in there's so many examples of leaders that led with love. It was like magical. You can't, it's like beauty. You can, when you see it, you know it. But when you're, you can't explain it. When you're in an environment, when you lead with love and care, it's just, you feel like you want to go to work. You just are so excited. But when you get in a culture that it's all about using people as tools and objects, it's just such a weight. It is so opposite. And in this book, it shares those stories that is directly correlated to mission success, which you get so much more mission success when you lead with care, compassion, but still have standards. But when you have leaders that only care for themselves, because they have no, it's like a cold front coming in. You just see that the safety goes down, the turnover goes way up, productivity goes way down. And in this book, it explains that. And it talks about the three things. And I went into healthcare, and I thought, and that's why it's called Beyond the Sea, because I thought maybe this is just the nuclear Navy and the military, but it's not. So I spent 5 years at the 10th largest hospital system in the country, and I would see the exact same thing. And that is why the book is called Beyond the Sea. This is not unique to the submarine force. This is applicable to any industry that is out there that deals with humans.
Oh, it's so encouraging because I think when people have the perception of the military and how leaders are leading within the military, there isn't always the perception of leading with love, and it's the perception is also that it's not encouraged, that there's more of a toxic leadership kind of environment. But what I love about everything you're saying is that is actually not productive. All the statistics and data points that is not the most productive way for any team, and that productivity goes down. If someone is in a position where they're trying to learn how to be a leader, and they don't know where to begin, obviously getting your book and understanding the process, but is there something that they can do first, like take a pause and how to evaluate, even if they are a good leader, or do you think that they should try and ask some of their subordinates, where to begin to even start this journey to determine if you are a good leading with love leader?
So the data is overwhelmingly clear. So if you look at the meta-analysis of leader-member exchange, which is basically building relationships, the same unit that you put into yourself of how you can communicate better, how you look, whatever it is that you put that one unit into yourself as a leader, if you put that same unit of effort into building relationships, the outcome will be 20-fold, 100-fold. It's proven in the academic world with statistical analysis. So for those leaders that are starting out, we have this perception that it's all about you as a leader. It's not. It's how you inspire your teams, how you get the most out of them, how you communicate with them, how do you recognize them. Building relationships, what we talk about, is the greatest gift of any leader. And so you start by knowing what is the most effective. But I'm not saying, increase your communication skills and so forth. That's important. But if you really want to move the needle of your leadership, it's building these relationships and care. And these steps of process is going to be your greatest reward at first.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, and I think our society at large just hasn't grown up with love and leadership, or really even knowing what it looks like. So I think that what you're doing here is so important, because you're starting to provide the parameters and the guidelines of what leadership looks like in today's society, and it's building relationships in a environment in which people are, stuck on their phones. Yeah. How do they learn how to start communicating again?
So yes, I agree. They have to have this conscious determination that one, and I'll give you the quick framework that is so important. Is one, Theodore Roosevelt said this, that no one cares how much you know until you know how much you care. So first, you have to have a mindset about service to others and caring for others. That is the first step. Once you do that, right, if people know you care for them, they're going to want to talk to you. And then you start building relationships as the 5-step process that we have. Once relationships are there, then you're going to build trust. When trust is established, people are going to come to you, collaborate, communications, and this is where all the outcomes go up. So it's that process. And when I worked with, over 6 years, my mentor, Dr. Grain, who is an IO psychologist that has done this for 50 years, I said, Dr. Grain, I don't understand. I go, why aren't we doing this? I go, there's no downsides. Why are we missing this? And he says to me, he said, because we're still in the quicksand of how we used to teach or leadership before. If you look at where leadership was originated in this current generation, it was during World War II. And it was applicable during World War II because you had to have command and control, especially in a wartime.
Because it was a hierarchy of communication.
It was.
Yeah, that makes sense. I never really thought of it that way before.
Right, and so we said, just like the kamikazes in World War II from Japan.
Yeah. You
think about this. They would sacrifice their lives to drive their plane into an aircraft carrier. There was no thought. There was just a sacrifice of being told what to do. And so we said, we're still in that quicksand. And this is why the leaders, and this is why we're going to change how we teach people for the next generation, because we're still in that quicksand. If this is the framework and model that we've taught all these leaders, and they think that this is the way leadership should be, and it's not.
Yeah, wow. And so refreshing to hear someone that has your experience, your background, to be talking in this manner, because I think that so many people just feel they don't have leadership, that leadership hasn't been taught, love hasn't been taught, these skills haven't really been put in front of them. So, and I love that you're out there teaching this in not just the military, but in other industries. I mean, healthcare, my gosh, they could definitely use this. It's because in healthcare especially, it still has that hierarchical, structure within it in and of itself, and how you, with your medical records, to communicating with your doctor, and just going with the guidance rather than, and I loved what you said earlier, like empowering the other person, right? And enabling them to be able to communicate to their superiors. I think it's the same thing with doctors and with hospital organizations and staff within the within the healthcare system, and how applicable this is in so many different industries. I think it's amazing.
And why this is so unique, when I was writing this leadership book, I didn't want this to just to be another leadership book on the shelf. There are countless leadership books out there. It's just, this is the good old boy, this is how I did it, right? But what's unique about this, and the most effective leadership books out there, it takes these practical experiences and marries it with academic rigor.
Love that.
If you can combine practical and academic to give actual tools to improve leadership, that is a game changer. And that is not what we're teaching in our academic schools till today. Like you see Simon Sinek, right?
Yes.
Simon Sinek has been, he's incredible, right?
Yes.
Or, there's multiple other people that are using research to see why, but they're researchers and they have to go outside to get practical experience. This is taking my practical experience and marrying it with the #1 relationship theory, which I know is explaining this perfectly. And that is the magic behind it. And that's why this is so unique and so impactful.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's about relationships and how you communicate with other humans and look at them as other humans and not just exactly like you said, like a tool for an agenda.
Yeah.
And enabling them to have their voice and to want them to speak up and to communicate.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And it's one thing that you're hit, especially this generation, and everyone's on their iPhone.
Yeah.
They're behind. And again, I think this hasn't come up because when I grew up, I was told to come in when the lights were on, and and I didn't have an iPhone, so I had a. So now that you see people at dinner, the families, there were people sitting next to each other, and they were texting each other, they're not communicating.
Yeah.
And I think that this could be something significantly as an existential threat
Yes.
for America, because the leadership is the key, and we're all relying on AI. But one thing is unique about this is that Dr. Grain has shared his IP to say exactly through this academic research, here is the 5-step process that we can take you through. We know that works. So we know that relationships are going to build great leaders. We know that these relationships are going to improve outcomes, and this is why this is so valuable to any industry.
Yeah, and I think that you've really highlighted the fact that we went from the hierarchy was in place because of communication. You had to know what the next person was communicating and that you could rely on them for that communication. But I think with cell phones, it's enabled us to look at other ways of living, which is great, but we've lost that structure and that accountability, like you said, along the way. So now that we've kind of had an opening, if you will, now it's like, okay, and we know new possibilities, now let's provide some structure to that. And I think really what you're going back to is the relationships and how do we communicate? And how do we communicate at work, at home, with friends, and building that, what does that even look like? Because I think that it is challenging for so many people.
It is. And I'll tell you, when we used to go into and discuss this, leaders, sometimes they ignore the people they work with. And I feel sorry, and leadership can be learned.
Yeah.
When you could take them through this 5-step process, that gives them the confidence and the roadmap to be able to do this. And in fact, in one organization, productivity went up by 50% by looking at their keystrokes, based on implementing this 5-step process to build relationships.
Wow.
And I can't overemphasize how important it is, especially for this generation.
Fundamental level. I mean, what do you feel as though that in your journey has been the most challenging situation?
So the challenging situation is, I can't tell you how many times I've been told, leading with love, that's weak, it's soft, it's
So
something.
you have received pushback.
Oh,
like this.
absolutely, it's something different. And when you had a leader their entire life that hasn't done that, of course they're going to say that this isn't the right way, because this is not how I did it. But it's important that they listen and see the results. And I'm not saying that you should do this because this is how I did it, and this is based on evidence-based. And any corporation out there that wants to improve their outcomes and sustain for long-term growth, this is based on evidence-based. So if you can't ignore the results.
Yeah.
And so those leaders that push back and say, this doesn't work, I would love to have a debate with them, with the academic research that shows that this actually does work, that the mission will succeed far above any expectations. If you lead this way, you're not going to be soft, it's not going to be weak.
I think that's key here with so many different leaders in every industry. I mean, because there's not a training tool that really gives you the tools and tactics to be a CEO at every level. And then you're telling them they've got to lead with love, and you're trying to push them. And it's like, well, how am I going to get them to do what I would by, and I think understanding what those tools and tactics and strategies are, and then being able, like you said, role playing them is huge. Because look, I mean, I think we all want to feel as though that we're doing the best that we can, or at least at a bare minimum, even if you're not striving. But for those that are striving and that want to be better, at least you're starting to give the tools. And at the end of the day, it's about relationships. And I think that that's the key here that we've lost. We talk about momentum of success, financial success, professional success, but love has to lead first.
And this is my thought. And so I always was on the search, what's the purpose of life?
Yeah.
Is the purpose of life to have as much money that you want in the bank or try? No. The purpose of life is service to others. When we get up there, there's one thing in certain, that stopwatch is going to stop sooner or later. No one has ever escaped death. And so I've always wondered, when we get up to the pearly gates, hopefully I'm going there, what am I going to be judged on? Am I going to be judged on how much money I have in the bank or the car I drove? No, it's going to be about how much good I can have done for other people. And so that monetary payback, we're wired that way. When we help others, we immediately get excitement, we get comfort, we get
What do you do when you get pushback? When someone's just pushing you and pushing you? I mean, it's almost like a parent.
Yeah.
And how do you give these boundaries with an individual? Like, I love for you, I care for you, I want you to be the best, but you're stepping consistently out of line.
Yep.
What do you do?
So in the book, I talk about, one, if you have anything that's happening, you have to look yourself in the mirror, right? You got to fix whatever and solicit that input of why they're not performing the way they are.
Yes.
And if it's something you're doing, you need to fix that as a leader. Look yourself in the mirror first. But then once you set that, you have to set clear standards. Mm-hmm. And when they don't meet those clear standards, they understand clearly what needs to be done, you have to hold them accountable. Mm-hmm. And that's why, again, I go back to the family, is there accountability in family? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Is there love in family? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, I use this as an example, is that sometimes you have to, have a child leave the house for their own greater good. And so accountability and firing people with leading with love, I had several sailors come to me after that I had to let go of the ship. And later down the road, 5 years later, they sent me a thank you note for helping them. Yeah. But when these leaders just fire people because they made a mistake, they'll never come back to that leader and say, hey, thank you. Yes. They're going to say, you didn't care for me.
And when someone finds themselves in a toxic leadership role, how would you advise them to lead as a subordinate? Yes.
And so I get this question a lot. And so there are some companies that's why, if you look, McKinsey did this article in 2021. It was called the Great Resignation and Great Redesignation. And they polled all these people why they were leaving their jobs. And the number one reason why they were leaving wasn't because of money, was because they didn't feel valued, heard, or cared for. I mean, we're talking 100,000 people. So these leaders that don't change, they're going to lose talent. So again, these people that work for a toxic work boss, it is your job to be able to change this mindset and build this relationship. And I'll give you a quick example. I knew this person I currently work with, and she had a boss that she was about to work for that fired for 2 consecutive years in a row every secretary that only lasted for 2 weeks. And she saw that there was a guitar in his office. And she says, do you play the guitar? Do you know B.B. King? And they started this relationship.
That's great.
And then that person, because that person, even though he's a leader, goes opposite, knew that she cared for him. It built a relationship, built trust. He then started confiding in her. She was there for 8 years.
Amazing.
And then when she needed to get another job, and the person that she went to go, because this guy retired, that knew him, didn't even want to interview her.
Yeah.
She goes, HR, is there an interview? No, you got the job. Yeah. You survived that guy for 8 years.
Yeah.
So this is how you deal with a toxic work environment. First, you have sympathy for them because they're doing this. Maybe they're having troubles with their life. Give them a book, but try to build a relationship. And if they're not changing, because maybe they do have some deep psychological issues, then it's time, after a certain concerted effort, You need to get out of there for your own well-being.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And I think that that's something that people are learning, what is toxic versus what is someone that's leading with love and trying to get me a better, to be better.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where you're going to have to, individuals have to start do some self-reflection.
And so in this book, I had characterized one leader who was toxic, and then the second leader that I talk about is apathetic. And I don't know what was worse. The toxic boss, sure, it stays with you, but I have so much anxiety as well when a boss is apathetic that didn't care for me. So it's a toss-up.
Yeah. So what do you, give an example of that if you could?
About toxic?
Yeah, no, about apathy being apathetic, not working in the favor, but still leading with love.
So yeah, you can't, apathetic and leading with love are just, you can't be apathetic and lead with love. You have to have this mindset. And apathetic means it's the absence of love. And I'll give an example.
Yes.
In the book, I talk about this leader that came in, and again, you just see that there's this culture and people want to go above and beyond from this previous leader. And there was this lanyard, basically needed to be braided because it was old. And he took it off on his own time to be able to go out and buy this own material and braid this, hours and hours worth of this, because he overheard the new captain talk about how he would wish there was another lanyard. So I remember he was coming on the pier and he says, hey, I was a lieutenant at the time. Oh my God, there's a captain. I'm going to show him this new lanyard. He's going to be so excited. And he goes, Captain, you got a second? He's like, yeah, what do you need? He goes, look, do you like the new lanyard? You like the new lanyard? And he looks at it, he says, yeah, that's good. I wish you would have used a different color. That's apathy. Yeah. And it just squashed that person's dreams. Yeah. He never would have done anything above and beyond anything more. And, and again, I felt sorry for him because he was never taught how this, right? It was all about him and he's the king, and everyone should bow to them because that's what is being taught. And I feel sorry for him. And that's an example of that.
I love it. That's a great example. And I mean, it discourages people to go above and beyond and to find solutions and to get creative because that person simply dismissed it or found the fault in that one small thing that and I always say, you never know the movie that's playing in someone else's head, right?
Exactly.
And he may be just constantly critical of himself and then therefore is constantly critical on others.
Exactly, and this is why this is so important, because in the book I talk about we were the best submarine, and then all of a sudden it was like a night and day. We became the worst submarine almost overnight. And it was one person, the culture, that changed it all. And this goes back to the results of relationships and how impactful it is on mission accomplishment. So these people that say that mission accomplishment will be hurt if you don't lead that way, well, if you don't lead that way, mission's gonna hurt. And so in the book, I talk about that. And again, I feel sorry for it because he's never been taught because of the leadership style, of the impact of how, when you lead, you're leading people. You're not leading objects or ships. Yeah. You're leading people. That's what leadership is. And if we don't give these leaders the tools to be able to build empathy, trust, relationships, we're not teaching people how to be leaders.
Yes. I think it's amazing. Yeah, I love all the work that you're doing and how you are taking your lessons from a really amazingly high level of leadership and how that's translated into a very human relationship level, because you're right, it's everything, and how you've translated that to your career is really inspiring. And thank you for all the work that you're doing and how you're leading. And I think we can all feel a lot better and more confident about our country, knowing that someone like you is, carrying nuclear codes, because we can understand that it's not about, when leading with love is not about weakness, it's not about softness, but it's about accountability. It's about having the right tools to build the right relationships, but seeing people and meeting people at where they are. I think it's just really beautiful and inspiring.
And if I close with this,
Please.
it's about building an environment.
Yes.
And it's about building a culture where people feel valued and cared for. That is essentially it. And yet we don't teach this, and that's what I would love to do. And I'll share one last story.
Please.
When I was XO, Executive Officer, my third submarine, we deployed with SEAL Delivery Team 1. SEAL Delivery Team 1, we put a little James Bond submarine, we get underway from Pearl Harbor, go thousands of miles from our home port, and they deployed with the Navy SEALs. It was so secretive that we put a curtain around the navigation plot because only a few select people on board knew where we were because this was so classified. And SEAL Delivery Team 1, I got to know them really well. And at the same time I was deployed with SEAL Delivery Team 1, the Lone Survivor movie was actually happening in real world. I don't know if you know the movie. It's with Michael Murphy. 4 SEALs go behind enemy lines. There was a movie with Mark Wahlberg out there. His name is Lieutenant Murphy, who's leading this. And those SEAL Delivery Team 1 members was part of the family that was deployed to me at the same time that they were doing this. In the movie, what happens is they get found and they're in this ravine and they get surrounded and they're trapped. And so the leader, Lieutenant Murphy, who is a Navy SEAL, the most ruthless, most capable organization in the world, and you would never think of characterizing Navy SEALs with leading with love of how talented they are. But he knew that all of them were going to die if he didn't go up on this ridge to do a communication to get in help. And so he knew that he was going to die. And so he went up on this ridge to call in help, and he was successful, and there was one lone survivor, which is the moral of the story.
Wow.
So fast forward about 3 years later, when I'm the naval aide to the president, which is in the book, I am on stage with President Bush supporting him to give the Medal of Honor posthumously to Michael Murphy's parents.
Wow.
And you know who was in the audience? Was the lone survivor.
Oh my gosh.
So going back to this LMX survey, did Michael Murphy sacrifice his life for the benefit of others? Yeah. Did he have relationships? Absolutely. And no other way you can explain of giving one's life for the benefit of others is love. Yeah. And so if you say that, and President Bush had this as well. So if the president can build relationships and lead with love, and the Navy SEALs can lead with love, I don't care who you are as a leader in this world, you can lead with love. And the results are incredible. You know, and Michael Murphy's is a great example. We still talk about Murph today in CrossFit. He's a legend. And he's a legend because he sacrificed himself for others. And that's the core message of the environment of why the Navy SEALs are so successful. Because they have that environment of care and teamwork.
Love it. This is beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
grateful.
much.
This is beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much.